Every tabletop game has the same goal: to crush Games Workshop and leave their crumpled body in their wake. No, they don't have that goal, but they all want to compete with Games Workshop. They all want to be as successful as Games Workshop. But is that even possible? So, over the last couple years, I have gotten really involved with Warmachine. As a tabletop game, it was just one that really piqued my interest, which is crazy because 2 years ago, I didn't even know it existed. I had never even heard about it. Okay, and the only reason I got involved with it at all is because I read an article talking about how Privateer Press was going to start 3D printing models, and I thought that meant I could 3D print them too. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be so amazing. And I thought maybe I'll be able to finally play a war game because I can afford it, right?
For the poor.
And so I started looking into it. And it was really sad at first because I learned, of course, that Privateer Press wasn't going to let other people 3D print stuff. They were just going to be 3D printing their models, which people had their thoughts on, their opinions on. And I watched Warmachine go from this thing that I was very like, oh, this is really cool, to, oh, well, maybe I don't want to get involved, to, oh, they're selling the company, it's going abandoned ship, you know, to its new home at Steamforged Games, where it's at now, where I have seen it just get better and better in multiple ways. And I'm not the only one. In fact, there's actually proof that it's gotten better and better. And here's some pictures that you might appreciate from one of the most recent cons that we had. Okay, this is where Warmachine used to be, and this is where it is now. And these are tabletop games being sold in the United States. Okay, which, take that how you will, but it's proof that this game is growing, and not just a little bit, like a lot. And without fail, every time that I make one of these videos, I hear people in the comments that are just like, oh, they don't care about the old armies, I don't want anything to do with them anymore, they're a terrible company. Or, you know, oh, I had an army and now there's no support for it and it's just going to disappear. Steamforged Games doesn't care. Not true. And first off, for people that are complaining about that stuff, like, in my mind, it's, for a game to survive, especially a game like this, they have to keep coming out with new products. And the only way to keep coming out with new stuff is to slowly let the old stuff disappear. It's just business sense. It sucks, but it's just business sense. And Steamforged Games was like, not on my watch. Okay? And then, to make it accessible, they created rules for armies no longer in print. And then we're like, oh, hey, we're not going to print those armies, but here's rules to play them. So if you have the old army, you can still use it. And if you don't, or you're missing pieces of it, guess what? 3D print it. We're going to start a side thing, right? We have the miniatures that you can buy and we'll ship them to you and you put them together. And monthly, we're going to roll out old armies and say, you can 3D print these if you want. So you can get them. And once you buy the files, you can print as many of them as you want. And it's not like that's enough, you know, because they're doing it month to month. It's subscription. So you get some models here, some models here, some models here. And once or twice a year, they change the armies. Then, a few weeks ago, they did a Frontier, which is like a big campaign with 3 full faction armies. Okay? And you would go in, and for $150, you would get an entire faction of 3D models that you could print. So it was just the files, but a whole army for $150. And there was 3 of them. And I think if you paid $300, you got all 3 armies. So that's potentially 3 armies for $300. Yes, you have to print them. Yes, it's going to cost you $50 to print them or whatever it is. But that's a whole army for $200 printed and on your desk. Like, that's huge. Okay. And so they're supporting old stuff from before they bought the game so that everyone is happy, which in my mind is just, they're listening to their customers. It's awesome. And that's not all they're doing. They're creating new models, bigger models. They're making their rule sets better for people, and they started releasing super heavies, which are bigger models that are not like the huge biggest models they have, but they're just really cool models that I want all of them because they're so cool and they're fun to paint. And in typical Polskate Gaming faction, Thunderhead, the most recent super heavy that I have gotten, I had to destroy and make it my own and change it because, well, I wanted it to look like he was flying using electricity, so I changed it up. And to show you how I did that, let me show you. Okay, so you should know who Thunderhead is by now. Okay, and really cool model. When I first saw it, I thought, oh man, that would be so cool. And the emphasis when they announced it was that it was going to be this flying model, right? And so it didn't need like these giant feet on it, which is why the feet are the way that they are. And they didn't need those normal big feet on it because it was going to be flying using the power of electricity. At least that's what I remember. Could be crazy. And so the sculpt is cool. I like the sculpt, but I thought, you know what? It doesn't really look like he's flying to me. So I'm going to change it. And how would I do that? Well, I changed a lot of things. So this Edward Scissorhands monstrosity right now is the arms. And originally the arms on the unit were down by its side like this. Okay. And so it just holds them down to the side. And I thought, you know what would be cool if those were out. Not like wings, right? Because yeah, he's not a plane. But out with the electricity coming out of the hands here. And so that's what I did. I drilled a hole there just big enough for these three pieces of, these are actually paper clips, by the way. Don't have to spend tons of money. And what I've done is this was normally a flat surface groove on all sides so that it could slip into this hole and fit perfectly, which it did, which was really nice. But for what I wanted to do, I wanted to change it. And so I have sanded it down a bit. I will continue sanding it down so it's a nice like cylinder because it is a robot. We don't want it to look terrible. We want it to look nice and fancy and robot-y. And so anyway, I drilled a hole, put a paper clip in here, kind of measured it to the distance I want. I put another one right here that you can barely see, but this is a cleat, and I'll show you what that does. But then I drilled another hole here and another tiny one right there for that cleat. And basically, when I glue it all together, what I'll do is I'll just stick it in that hole, stick that right there in that hole, and now we have a 2-point joint that's there. And you can backfill this. You can do whatever you want in this hole. I haven't decided what I'm going to do to it yet. But ultimately, this is what he's going to look like. And he's going to look like it on both sides. And I'll keep bending this metal to make it look more like electricity because we want it to go with the base, right? And at this point, I haven't decided if I'm going to use the base that it came with or if I'm going to just make one from scratch, but I really do like the base that it came with. You know, it's got this electricity going down into the rocks, the ground's broken up because of it. And as you can see, I have my other hand already here connected into the base. And yeah, it's going to need some cleanup, right? I need to cut some stuff, make sure it goes in here, do other things like that. But ultimately, this unit is now going to be, instead of 1/2 inch off the ground of the base, it's literally going to be like 4 inches up in the air and look like it's flying, which is what I'm going for, right? And so I'm super excited about that. Again, not sure if I want to keep using the base or not, or if it'll look too weird having my lightning coming down to this, but I honestly don't think it will. Guess we'll find out. Freaking awesome model. Just beautiful. Steamforged Games. Way to go. And then once I had all of the paper clips put in the way that I wanted and attached to the base. I was actually shocked at how sturdy it is. Like, I thought this was going to be one of those things that's like swinging all over the place like a leaf in the breeze, but it actually held true really, really good. There was only one problem. The lightning bolts, or the paper clips, where I put them in, didn't match the width of the lightning bolts of the base. And so I thought, well, I got to change that. So using my 2-part epoxy, I literally coated the lightning bolts so that it would be the same width everywhere. And it turned out really good. It took forever, but it's kind of nice. And at the end, I can sand them and make them sharp and do whatever I want to make it perfect. And I was just super, super happy with how it turned out in the end. And yeah, it was a little bit of a headache, but now Thunderhead is my own. And I absolutely love how he turned out. So in summary, Warmachine's back in the fight. They're not going anywhere. They're just getting bigger. They're just growing. And they're getting to that point where they can start competing with Games Workshop again, which honestly is good for both of them. Let's be honest. Showing Games Workshop some effective practices of listening to your customers can't be a bad thing, right? And getting competition out there, it just rises sales for everything. And you get people more involved and happier with the product. Just like me. That's why I'm kit bashing and building my own armies and doing stuff like that. And of course, if you would like to see the final painted product of Thunderhead, like, subscribe, stick around. I don't always do Warmachine content, but I like to do Warmachine content, so you're going to see more of it, along with other games like Infinity, Warcrow, Malifaux, Marvel's Crisis Protocol. I know I keep saying it, but I've got so much stuff that it's coming, I promise. Okay, and as always, thank you for coming and watching the video today. Stick around. Drop a comment below. Let me know if you think Warmachine is actually coming back or if it's just going to disappear and I'm crazy. I mean, are they making the right choices or are they just delaying the inevitable? I like to think that they're making all the right choices and things are just going to get better. But to each their own. So let me know what you think below. And as always, don't spend so much time building your world that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.